Have you ever thought that getting a yes comes down to how well you deliver your final pitch? Well, it turns out that might just be an illusion. In today's explainer, we're looking at the fascinating science of what actually happens before a request is even made. The truth is, the battle for persuasion, it's usually won or lost in the split seconds before you ever make your case. Okay, let's dive right into this. We're going to unpack the groundbreaking book, Pre-Suasion, by the legendary behavioral scientist Robert Cialdini. After spending years studying top performers, everyone from sales pros to fundraisers to business leaders, Cialdini discovered a massive secret. The highest achievers out there, they don't spend their time obsessing over product features or tweaking their offer. Instead, they spend way more time crafting what they do and say before they ever make a request. They are absolute masters of persuasion. They set the psychological stage so that people are already receptive to their message before they even hear it. To show you how bizarrely powerful this is, let's start with a bit of a mystery. So, a popular online furniture store ran a test on their landing page. For one group of visitors, the background of the website was just a picture of fluffy floating clouds. For another group, the background was a picture of pennies. Now, the group that saw the clouds ended up buying significantly more expensive plush sofas. Why on earth would a simple picture of clouds completely change human purchasing behavior? Well, I'm going to leave that unsolved for just a few minutes. We're leveraging what psychologists call the Zeigarnik effect. Basically, our brains are completely magnetized to unsolved mysteries, so keep that cloud in the back of your mind. Right now, let me ask you a question. Do you consider yourself to be an adventurous person who likes trying new things? Go ahead, think about it for a second. If you're like most people, your brain just started scanning your memories to find examples of times you were adventurous, right? Well, in a remarkable study, market researchers actually stopped people on the street and asked for their email addresses to send them a sample of a new soft drink. Usually, only about 33% of people agreed. But when they first asked the exact question you see right here, are you adventurous? Almost everyone, 97%, said yes. And the number of people who then handed over their email address, it skyrocketed to an astounding 75.7%. No way, right? By asking that single, simple question, the researchers created what Cialdini calls a privileged moment. Basically, this is a specific window of time when a person becomes highly receptive to a suggestion. See, when asked if you are adventurous, your brain naturally searches for hits rather than misses. It's just so much easier for us to remember times we actually were adventurous than to try and dig up the absence of adventure. Because your attention is suddenly entirely focused on your adventurous side, you are neurologically primed to accept a request to try a brand new, unknown soft drink. And that brings us to this incredibly powerful quote from Cialdini. He says, "The basic idea of persuasion is that by guiding preliminary attention strategically, it's possible for a communicator to move recipients into agreement with a message before they experience it." The core limitation of the human brain is that we can really only focus on one thing at a time. Once our attention is grabbed, we kind of just ignore everything else, and that makes human attention the ultimate currency in communication. Okay, so we've got a great roadmap for this explainer. 1. Directing human attention. 2. The power of association. 3. The 7 principles. And 4. Protecting yourself and positive self-influence. Let's get into it. Section 1. Directing human attention. The focusing illusion. So we humans have this dangerous cognitive bias where we assume that whatever we're focusing on right now is the absolute most important thing happening. And this brilliantly illustrates the solution to our earlier mystery. Remember the sofas? Why did the clouds make people buy pricier ones? Because subtle cues in the background subconsciously persuaded them. Visitors who saw the clouds were subliminally directed to focus on the concept of comfort. And because they were focused on comfort, they prioritized soft, plush, and ultimately way more expensive sofas. On the flip side, the visitors who saw pennies in the background had their attention drawn to price, making them hyper-focused on finding budget-friendly options. The background didn't change the products at all. It changed the focus of the buyer. Mind-blowing, right? This idea is perfectly captured by Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman. He said, "Nothing in life is as important as you think it is while you are thinking about it." Seriously, let that sink in. A communicator who can get you to focus on just one element of a message automatically preloads it with massive importance. And this leads to something called assumed causality. Because we overestimate the importance of whatever has our attention, we falsely assume it must be the actual cause of events. To see how illogical this assumed causality can really be, just look at these incredible historic examples. Back during the 1982 Tylenol recall,
The media was constantly flashing the numbers of the tainted batch codes on television screens. And because these numbers were so highly visible, citizens actually started playing those exact numbers in the lottery. They genuinely assumed the visibility of the numbers gave them winning power. Or consider the aftermath of September 11th. Fear and massive news coverage of air travel caused people to shift to driving just to avoid planes. Their focus was entirely on the perceived threat of flying, causing them to completely ignore the statistical reality that the casualty rate from car accidents was actually much higher. Their focus dictated their choices, completely overriding logic.
Moving on to Section 2, the power of association, shaping the unconscious. Here's the thing. Our brains don't operate on pure logic. They operate fundamentally and inescapably from raw associations. Every idea in your mind is part of this massive web of concepts, words, and images. So the crucial point here is how easily just a single word can shift our associations and even our political support. When researchers presented voters with a report comparing crime to a ravaging beast, people unconsciously associated it with something that needs to be hunted and caged, and consequently, they voted for solutions focused on catching and imprisoning criminals. But when the exact same data was presented and crime was instead referred to as a virus, the public entirely shifted their stance. I mean, a virus requires treatment and prevention, right? So they voted for solutions that tackled the underlying conditions of crime. Literally just changing one metaphor completely altered public policy preferences. And, it's not just words either. It's visual and physical associations too. In one really cool study, call center fundraisers were given standard text about how their work impacts the community. But one group was also given a simple photograph of a runner winning a race, and they just placed it right on their desks. Well, that second group raised 60% more money. The visual association of achievement and winning unconsciously fueled their drive. It's the exact same reason a warm cup of tea can make us feel warmer toward the people we're talking to. Our internal feelings are constantly being shaped by external physical cues. Section 3, the 7 principles, application in the real world. Now that we understand how attention and association work, it's time for some real-world application. Cialdini is famous for outlining universal principles of influence, and the real magic of persuasion is that these principles can be preloaded into your interactions. First up, reciprocity. People feel indebted when you give first. Waitresses who offered diners a small chocolate with the bill saw their tips rise, but if they gave one, walked away, and then unexpectedly came back to offer a second chocolate, tips shot up by 14.1%. Second is liking. We like people who are similar to us and who compliment us. Hairstylists who simply said, "You'd look good in any hairstyle," got 37% more tips. Third, social proof. Showing people what their peers do. Adding a most popular label to a restaurant menu boosts sales of that dish by up to 20%. Fourth is authority. You can persuasively establish massive trust by admitting a weakness early in your communication, before you highlight your strength. It just shows you're honest and unbiased. And fifth, scarcity. Limiting availability makes things seem way more valuable. Put a sign saying limit 3 per customer on an item and you will actually sell more of it. But what's really interesting here is Cialdini's newly discovered 7th principle, unity. Beyond just liking someone, unity is about shared identity. It's that feeling of we. When we emphasize a shared category, like, say, being from the same hometown or sharing a deep core value, it creates a profound willingness to cooperate. Our ability to create change in others is deeply, deeply grounded in shared personal relationships. Section 4, protecting yourself and positive self-influence. So with all these hidden triggers constantly pulling our attention this way and that, how do we actually defend ourselves? Well, the greatest defense you have is simple awareness. Persuasive influences work best when they're subtle or unconscious, basically when we lack the energy to analyze them. But the moment the spell is made obvious, it completely breaks. For example, people taking a phone survey usually report a 20% higher life satisfaction on sunny days. But if the interviewer simply mentions the weather before asking the question, the positive bias completely disappears. Or when viewers notice really obvious product placements in movies, they recognize the attempt to sway them and actually become less likely to buy the product. Awareness completely neutralizes the manipulation. You could also use this science to positively persuade yourself by setting up empowering cues. You can develop what are called if/when/then plans. Just define a specific cue in your daily environment and link it to a desired action. For example, if you want to be healthier, decide in advance. If I'm offered a soft drink at lunch, then I will immediately ask for green tea.
You are preloading your response. You can also shift your internal focus before a big event. Instead of cramming or focusing on anxiety right before an exam or a big presentation, use that specific window of time to consciously recap your past successes and strengths. You're setting up your own privileged moment for confidence.
Which brings us to the ultimate question you have to ask yourself as you look at your own daily life. Knowing that every subtle background image, every metaphor on the news, and every carefully placed cue is actively shaping your attention and choices, who is really making your decisions right now? By understanding the hidden art of Pre-Suasion, you can stop reacting to the backgrounds other people design for you and start intentionally setting the stage for yourself. Keep questioning what has your attention, use these tools to build a more aware life, and the next time you're about to make a request, stop and ask yourself, have you ever thought that getting a yes comes down to how well you deliver your final pitch?